Imperial Guard vs Tyranids 3000 points. // begin_emergency_transmission priority winter_contingency. Lord Commissar. Enemy contact. Tyranid of unknown fleet origin invading asteroid base 74. Requesting immediate bombardment. Asteroid belt at risk level Omega. Master of Ordnance A. Firing solution on Stonecrusher 275 meters and closing. Heavy static targets hit. Master of Ordnance B. Firing solution on Stonecrusher 315 meters at the oblique, heavy static target hit. Master of Ordnance C. Firing solution on Warriors 275 meters. Heavy static look at rain from the sky people. Master of Ordnance A. Firing solution on Stonecrusher 120 meters. 120 meters. Heavy static, one target destroyed. Master of Ordnance B. Firing solution on Stonecrusher 150 meters. Heavy static, another target destroyed. Master of Ordnance C. Firing solutions. 1 on Crushers 450 meters. 2 on Rippers 4 meters. Heavy static said and destroyed. Master of Ordnance A. Firing solution Raveners. 225 meters, heavy static, solid hit. Master of Ordnance B. Firing solo. Veteran Sergeant. Leroy Jean Cannons. Master of Ordnance B. 1 meter. 1 fracking meter. Heavy static, watch yourself son. Get back on the gun, we got a war to win. Target remains. Master of Ordnance C. Gaunts 2 meters. Repeat 2 meters. Warriors 15 meters. Get off me you little chomper. Hold the line. Heavy static. Master of Ordnance A. Incoming Carney. All weapons fire. Heavy static, fall back. Fall back. Relaying last tactical data to the Master of Ordnance B. All units fall back. Regroup at Alpha Charlie main freighter lift. Go. I'll cover you. Frag out. Master of Ordnance C. Hold the line, damn it. Fire all weapons on Sector 6. Heavy static UA. Bloody things got teeth the size of my fingers. Cover the retreat. By the Lord Commissar time. Lord Commissar. Authorization code Oscar Mike Echo Golf Alpha. Long range missiles on my position. Over. // end_transmission winter_contingency. The early dawn broke on the logistical yard of Asteroid Base 74, part of an asteroid belt on the galactic southeast of the Valor system. Asteroid Base 74 houses material goods for rapid redeployment due to its distance from the denser gravity wells its heavy planets generate. Much like the asteroid, Valor system is primarily made out of dense rocks and metals, creating strong electrical fields in their atmospheres in addition to their stronger pools. With ship docking dangerous, out-of-system logistics are performed on the belt. As the asteroid slowly tumbled back into daylight, a swarm of lifeforms were seen outside of the surface structure. Alarm klaxons blared, and the small contingent of colonists that made up the PDF for the station grabbed weapons. What they did not know was that they already had a breach. Using what was at hand, they formed a Basilisk company led by a Gorgon instead of a Chimera. A battle line was drawn amongst a scrapyard and Earthshaker cannons were poised to engage the enemy. A unit of veterans accompanied Basilisk Battery A and their Master of Ordnance on the western flank. Basilisk Battery B and their Master of Ordnance took position in the center field supporting a squad of guardsmen and the Gorgon. The Gorgon had Lord Commissar, acting officer of the only station on Asteroid 74, the platoon command squad of the only platoon present, a minor Storum priest who was the spiritual leader and guide, the Primaries Psyker who had been having terrible fits and nightmares, and 3 more squads of guardsmen. The eastern flank saw Basilisk Squadron C and their Master of Ordnance supported by another squad of guardsmen. The Tyranids' initial force was terrifying, but limited in number. The western flank had a unit of Stonecrusher Carnifexes which could be seen lurking in the partial darkness, eyes glinting in the light. The smaller forms of Termagants could be seen scurrying around their feet. The center field had the presence of a Tervigon with more Termagants, and the eastern flank had warriors spread out in a stealthy pattern. With warp messages disabled, emergency radio broadcasts were directed at the asteroid belt and back in system. The frequency bounced sporadically as the Lord Commissar informed Valor that an unknown Tyranid hive fleet or splinter had engaged their base and the supplies were at risk. Recommendation: orbital bombardment. The moment the glint of the Carnifex eyes was seen, 10 spotlights swept the front line. The massive Earthshaker cannons recoiled with deafening blasts that shook the rudimentary base to its core. Basilisk Squadrons A and B fired their weapons into the Carnifexes and hammered one into a bloody mess, though it kept moving. The Veteran Squad, the only actual combat experienced soldiers present besides the Platoon Command Squad and Lord Commissar, hurtled up the second story floor and snapped a crack missile at the Carnifexes, but missed. Basilisk Squadron C rotated on their tracks, firing into the warriors. The heavy cannons pounded them into oblivion, vaporizing 4 of them with no mercy. The Gorgon rolled forwards, firing mortars and heavy stubbers into gaunts. In return, the Stonecrusher Carnifexes roared and surged forward. Maddened by the incoming shells, they smashed through rubble and sprinted heedlessly forwards with some termagaunts on their heels. The Tervigan reached out with its synapse and got control of the second squad before they too ran into the killing field. They were needed from strategic control of the station. It summoned rippers and hormagaunts with its hive mind link through the ductwork and girders far above the contestants. They landed directly behind Basilisk Squadron C with awkward tumbles and scrambled to their feet. The warriors moved into the now damaged scrap heap to take shelter from the devastating cannons. They fired their 2 Stranglethorn cannons at the guard squad protecting Squadron C, killing several of them despite them digging into cover. With the Stonecrushers exposed and coming at them, Basilisk Squadron A fired a devastating salvo that blew one apart and injured another. Hunter-killer missiles were discharged, inflicting one more good hit. The veterans braced up and fired another crack missile, scoring a perfect headshot. Their 3 plasma gunners charged their weapons up to full. Beasts this size could only be cracked by good hits. One missed as both of his companions burst into superheated gas and melting piles of screaming flesh. Finicky are the machine spirits of plasma guns, and trifling with them has its consequences. Basilisk Squadron B also turned, firing heavy shells into the Stonecrushers as well. Hunter-killer missiles followed suit, landing 2 more solid hits. The second Carnifex was obliterated, with the missiles slamming heavily into the third one. The Gorgon turned and moved west, firing heavy stubbers into gaunts. Its hunter-killer missile missed its mark and its one-use mortar tubes were empty. Squadron C had a dilemma on their hands. The warriors were undercover, protecting them from indirect shells while they had infantry directly behind them. With a swift order from the Master of Ordnance, 2 swung around and fired danger close. Earthshaker cannons, heavy flamers, stormbolters, and even hunter-killer missiles fired point-blank range, removing both offending units. The third Basilisk swung its gun west and fired at the remaining Stonecrusher behind a massive pile of scrap. The Master of Ordnance took a best guess for telemetry, but the round was off target and smashed several termagaunts instead. Careening out of control, the last Stonecrusher crashed into the building with the veterans. The sergeant, with more care, upcharged his plasma pistol and burned a hole in its shoulder. The volley of shotguns also managed to injure the massive beast. With a howl of pain, it swung its bio-flails and Stonecrusher tail, smashing most of the squad into paste. The sergeant leapt from the balcony and grabbed one of its massive tusks. Using its flailing momentum, he smashed its face in with his power fist. Alive but incredibly injured, it flailed again, spraying acidic blood that killed the other veterans and throwing the sergeant back into the building. He slid across the floor and propped himself up as he saw it barrel after him in rage. The Tervigan kept reaching out for control of the gaunts running closer to the enemy, spewing up another unit to hold control of the critical points of interests. Once again it designated Squadron C as a target with its hive mind, and more rippers and hormagaunts rained from the ceiling behind them. They came down with more enthusiasm and hunger than last time, with the hormagaunts smashing into some scrap metal and the rippers landing completely in front of the basilisks. Right in front of Basilisk Squadron B and the Gorgon, a unit of Raveners burst through the floor and the asteroid rock itself. A Broodlord and a Tyranid Prime was with them. They misgauged the opening and smashed into a particularly hard foundation slab, landing in a stunned heap amongst the shower of rock and debris. Behind them and far to the east, a Trigon Prime emerged with a unit of hormagaunts to further ensnare them. It fired bioelectric pulses at the guard, killing many of them. A unit of Hive Guard then shot the Gorgon so hard it took massive amounts of damage. The warriors closed in on Basilisk Squadron C, firing their weapon and wiping out more of the guardsmen holding the line. Squadron A was unable to engage the last Stonecrusher fighting the sergeant, so they pivoted and engaged the new Ravener threat with deadly accuracy. Rounds pounded down on them from above, further stunning and bouncing them off of the hard ground from the impacts. The sergeant charged his plasma pistol from the prone, but immolated himself on accident instead. Squadron B pounded the Raveners at point-blank range, accidentally firing to close and stunning its own crew from the impact. Combined with their heavy flamers and stormbolters, massive casualties were taken. The Gorgon disgorged the command squad and a guardsman squad with the Psyker next to them, and 2 guard squads out the rear to deal with the new threats. All units opened fire into the Raveners as well, pasting them with Imperial fury. Several remained still, and were met by the crushing charge of a Gorgon and the bolstered command squad. The Psyker attempted to work his magic, but struggled against the dark forms clawing at his mind, injuring himself mentally in the process. The Lord Commissar issued a challenge, which a slightly dazed and injured Prime met. The Prime was repeatedly stabbed and nearly killed outright, and managed to wound the Lord Commissar in return. The Minostorum priest walked into the incoming Overwatch fire and bounced all of the rounds off of his Rosarius force field before killing a Ravener. The platoon commander forgot to turn on his power sword and mostly got in the way, panic setting in. The command squad itself fought tooth and nail, injuring another Ravener. They returned the favor, nearly killing the platoon commander and injuring the Minostorum priest. The fight was a stalemate and wore on. The guard squad on the strategic point in the center field opened fire on the Hormagaunts, killing all of them. The ones behind the Gorgon fired on the Hive Guard, killing one of them and injuring another. Squadron C attempted to place all guns forward to the warriors, but one of them became immobilized on a pile of scrap and was unable to move. It fired its weapons at the Gaunts, killing half of them, but its main gun could not be brought to bear. The other 2 fired forward, but were unable to get solid hits and only took one more down. The Master of Ordnance threw a frag grenade at the Rippers, injuring them, and then charged to keep them off of the Basilisks. The remains of the guard squad killed the remaining Gaunts. The Stonecrusher charged Basilisk Squadron A, avoiding most of the Overwatch in a very fortunate manner that only resulted in one shot to its chest and then bounced off a support column in its rage and fell onto one of the Basilisks, mildly damaging it. They responded by ramming it for further injury and then falling back to form a second line of defense another day, seeking refuge from the oncoming horde. This was the result of the last Stonecrushers to hit roll. The Hive Guard sprayed rounds at Basilisk's B and then charged the Gorgon with some Termagants that moved up and combined fire with the Tervigon to annihilate the Primaris Psyker squad. Once again Hormagaunts and Rippers rained from the ceiling onto Squadron C's position, attempting to drown them. The ensuing melee saw everyone but the Lord Commissar and the Gorgon slain after a round of surprisingly bad fighting from the Imperial Guard's forces. The Prime was still locked in combat with the Lord Commissar, both barely alive. The Trigon finished off the Guardsmen with more electrical shocks, and then charged the Basilisks. They took some damage and retreated to join Squadron A to form a second line of defense for another battle that was inevitable. The Warriors finished off the Guardsmen by Squadron C, but failed to close in. The Master of Ordnance became entangled in Rippers, but his armor held up remarkably well and he was able to keep them busy so the last Basilisk squadron could provide covering fire for the retreating forces. It was a bad day to be on Asteroid Base 74. The Lord Commissar issued one last bombardment order over the fallen Voxcasters comm unit and fought on, buying as much time for the resistance as possible. Due to time restraints, we had to call the game. Tyranids had secured the field and victory points, and we had confirmed the real test, Basilisk having no minimum range. The model has always been able to lower the cannon to a level point, yet always had a minimum range of 36. We made it 24 for playability, but we finally got a lore confirmation from the new Astra Militarum book confirming they can operate the main gun as an assault gun, meaning it can use its high-powered shells for firing point-blank on hard targets. In game terms, they are a lot more flexible, and the rulebook will reflect this when the weekly report comes out. They still cannot move and fire the Earthshaker because of the Ordnance rule, but can now protect themselves. This was a stress test against the most ideal army for the S9 value of the main gun, and we confirmed it cannot be broken for a turn 0 wipeout. If you ever find additional information like this, Please submit it so we can incorporate it.